Welcome. This is a take two video. It's not often that I feel a need to redo a video, but appropriately for this Virgo full moon, I felt the need. Now there's a lot more than a full moon in Virgo, which we'll be talking about today. There's an awful lot happening in the heavens. Therefore, I will attempt my best to break apart what the heck's going on, because there's a lot of layers happening all at once. The way that we do astrology is there's the bit by bit breakdown, but then we also have to look at the totality of the whole and what it means for all these bits and pieces to mix together. Left brain, right brain, back and forth. Now to begin with, Mercury is today joining Saturn at the last degree of Aquarius before moving into Pisces. Mercury will remain in Pisces through March 18th. Saturn enters Pisces on the 7th, completing his roughly 2.5-year transit of Aquarius. And then Saturn will be transiting Pisces the next 2.5 years, roughly. So this is the completion of the period that began with global lockdown. That was the symbol of Saturn entering Aquarius. And this has brought about this period of building fundamental new networks, communities. So we're seeing now there's been a structure that is seeded. These indeed may be some of the folks we may be working with for years. Now, I'll talk more about Saturn into Pisces. This is going to be our next couple of years. But just to summarize, Saturn in Pisces is going to really challenge our artists, our creators, our visionaries, our dreamers, our more spiritually oriented souls to create structure for their creativity, their visions, their spiritual contributions. So wherever Saturn's transiting, that's where we get a simultaneous pressure and opportunity to master. Think of the symbolism of Saturn going into Aquarius during coronavirus. Why? Saturn put pressure on Aquarius, the scientific community, to attempt to provide a solution without getting into the details of how well or unwell or how that whole thing went down. Similarly, Saturn into Pisces is going to be experienced for some of our more sensitive souls, like that very special magical glass window to heaven. Now there's a cloud passing by, and it's just like, uh-oh, what do we do now? Well, it's time for us to learn how to channel for real, to make it real, to make it concrete, to not merely naively dream, but to make manifest and make real what it is that we aspire to do and be. Okay, so these days it's Saturn at the last degree of Aquarius, critical degree. We've also got Pluto at the last degree of Capricorn, critical degree. We'll be talking much about Pluto's transit out of Capricorn into Aquarius. But this is big deal stuff, and this is why these shifts can be profoundly felt by all of us during these days and weeks. It's just going to be shift after shift after shift. Now, if there is anything to specifically highlight in this video for these coming couple of weeks, it would be the stellium formed in Aries between Venus, the planet Jupiter, the asteroid Vesta, and the centaur Chiron. Now, this is like a ray of healing as well as awareness that can also be brought to light through subtle or not so subtle triggers and or crises. We're going to talk very much about the significance of the Jupiter-Chiron conjunction in this video. It is a profound transit and experience for each and every one of us. But this is going to bring a healing ray of awareness to the archetype of Aries. So we're talking about freedom needs or the lack thereof, autonomy needs or the lack thereof, our ability to get what we want, aka desires, or the lack thereof, sexual healing is extremely highlighted across the board, which can take place in many different ways on many different levels, but we're talking about how to heal the relationship to ourself, our gender, our body, our natural libido. And what Mars Aries is the spark to live, which is largely lit by the flame of desire. And this is going to be one of the few and many things that I talk about that does not necessarily fit the outdated traditional spiritual paradigm that sometimes provides the notion that we should have no desire, or we should be selfless. And what that means is we're orienting towards giving the fullest of ourselves back to the world and others, because that is what actually fills us up the most, as opposed to being deceived into believing that if we robbed everyone's house and brought everything back into our house, that would somehow provide happiness. There's some people out there that are very confused about this, no doubt. But for us to have desire, for us to want something that we do not already have, is what lights the flame of desire. Desire, you could say, is the proximity between us and the object of desire. And the more that's between us and the object of desire, the more that fans the flame of desire. So we really need to have these things that get us up, moving, goals, achievements, whatever it may be. That can be a significant part of this core healing. It is the actual spark of life. Mars Aries is the blood. It's the desire to live. It's the desire to have fresh, new experiences. And likely that is how so much of this healing will be taking place for many of us. It's a bit of a daredevil. Go and explore the thing we haven't explored yet. That's so exciting. And at the same time, there's this very dualistic, paradoxical dynamic. We will all be meandering and swimming through these coming weeks and months between the need to move and stand up and fight back, and the need to slow down and evaluate and make sure that we're not getting ahead of ourselves, because a matchbook could turn into a forest fire with some of the energy that we're talking about here and now. This Chiron in Aries brings up the wound of Aries. So this, for example, could be experienced like a punch in the gut type of experience. And when we're punched in the gut, we're unable to react. We actually kind of cave in on ourselves. It's harder to breathe. We go into this very constricted state. So we may be exploring in highly unique individual ways for each and every one of us how we've been programmed when it comes to anger, when it comes to instincts, when it comes to reactivity. There's different types of people. There's some people that actually need to learn to become angry. And I counsel these folks all the time. It's like, no, be angry, be defensive. Every time those instincts go off, make sure you're listening to them, because at its core, Mars Aries is a protective, defensive energy and force. Mars Aries is like something's at the door that's scary. Well, that's when the warrior says, I'm going to be the first person to check that out to make sure that everybody's safe. So that is the warrior. In each and every human being, we need to have a healthy amount of this confidence to lead, to initiate, to go to the beat of our own drum, to do what we want to do, to fearlessly explore the new and the unknown. Mars is the leading edge of our soul's evolution by acting on instincts and acting on desires. And do we even know what we want until we've explored it? No. So there is a need for exploration. Now I'm going to talk again, Chiron and Mars, and then we'll see the significance of Jupiter joining Chiron. Again, profound transit. We're talking about the wounded masculine. Okay, now the masculine, maybe the wrong word, exists within all humans, all genders. This is, again, the part of ourself which I just described, this protector, this defender, this confidence to spearhead, initiate. I mean, we know what Mars is. It's the phallic symbol. It can penetrate. It can cut cords. It can separate. This is going to be a huge period of healing through separation. Chiron and Aries need to cut the cord. Distance is wonderful. You want to have a healthier relationship with your family? Well, I suggest not spending every day with them. That might foster a bit more mutual appreciation for one another, might it not? So I want to address the wounded masculine, because I already have a funny feeling when I say the wounded masculine. There at least is a percentage of feedback I just hear out there in the astral that some people respond like, yeah, the wounded masculine, that the fucked up men, those wounded men, the wounded masculine that keeps messing everything up and they just need to learn to take care of themselves, and yet they don't, those wounded men. Now, I'm pointing this out because if I were to say the wounded feminine, I don't think there would be quite the same collective response from a percentage of people. And that just kind of shows where we are in time. And so I'm going to present an idea that I think is actually quite radical for the groups, the people, the demographic, the new age circles, spiritual circles I'm generally speaking to and preaching to, which is not only is the masculine wounded at its core, the masculine is wounded at its core similarly to the feminine. Because thousands of years of male-dominant society was not in any way showing, demonstrating, or embodying healthy masculinity. That was not high masculinity when men were making everybody else their slaves. This is not the natural way of things at all. Man castrated himself by condemning woman and by condemning sexuality. My guess is you've read some traditional religious anything and noticed how the sexual function has been completely condemned by churches and institutions in order to control the population, and essentially you can create more Catholic babies, that's okay, which is in itself a form of bureaucratic oppression. This is humanity losing its soul in order to empower a machine. So sexuality was damned, and with it, core masculinity. So, and for those interested, I have an Instagram. I put daily music and art correlating with the astrology, so you may want to check it out. I do also put additional posts, write-ups. I'm a bit more personal there and at my community. So I did recently write up about the masculine, the wounded masculine, and some of the archetypes, or you could say gods, associated with the masculine that have also been demonized, along with so many feminine gods and goddesses. Okay, so let's not pretend it's been a man's world. Let's not pretend men had their heyday, now it's women having their heyday. That's not what I mean by the wounded masculine. I'll give you more of an example of the wounded masculine. When I see somebody be a protector, when I see somebody leading effectively, the feedback those folks get is you're being mean, you're being angry, or you're being narcissistic. If you're going to call the natural leaders and protectors mean and narcissistic, as a species, we're fucked. And as a friendly little aside, I'm not super into overly passive people. You're not spiritually evolved, you're delusional. And I do get the feedback. I've been doing this for 10 years. I've been working with people 2 to 3 times my age, doing counseling in my 20s while I was raising a child living in the ghetto of Savannah, Georgia. And people tell me you can talk the talk once you've walked the walk. Do you know what my walk is? Some of these folks say, yeah, Tim and his young warrior spirit. Well, when he gets soft, when he gets older, then we'll really get wisdom from him. Okay, do you have any idea what I'm doing? And how careful, tactful, and intentional I am? You want to hear a little bit from the Saturn side of Tim? The last video I uploaded, which was really simply to put pressure on astrologers and the astrological community. Yes, I'm doing that intentionally. And no, it's not because I want people to feel bad or inadequate. It's because I want the whole thing to move and to start noticing what's not working and what is. So I've got a little bit of a warrior spirit myself, and I can't even begin to tell you how much shit I've taken for it, being in a male gender. It's a very, very contradictory experience. I'm speaking straight from the wounded masculine right now. What do you want your man to be? And I know I'm speaking a little gender now too, but this is actually inherent with men and women, because women are, of course, conquering, leading, initiating, and not feeling bad or shameful about it themselves, cutting cords when necessary themselves, becoming self-autonomous and self-empowered themselves. Of course, this Vesta, Chiron, Jupiter, Venus, this is like feminine power, high priestess, resurrection. The Vestal virgins were the master healers of the Roman paradigm. The word virgin doesn't mean chaste woman, it means self-autonomous woman, a woman who's so self-empowered she in no way relies or depends upon a man. That's a virgin. So now you know who the Virgin Mary is, right? Powerful, meaningful. So we're talking about that happening too. I'm not trying to be biased in any ways, but just as a personal aside, as a man, I find that women have all sorts of different needs, expectations, and desires, what they would want from a man, even simply speaking sexually. You know, if you want to get hit on by somebody, my question is how, because it seems like every person has a different need, desire, and it's going to be awesome for some person. It's going to trigger the shit out of another person. Now, here's a very interesting feedback, reflection. This is the same for men. Yeah? This idea that men's just going to take anything that comes by, and that we also don't have specific needs, tastes, wants, desires. This is the male wound. You think it was male heyday when we're fighting all the wars and we're working in the factory and we're having to shove down all of our emotions in order to survive? You think we chose to do that historically? What a bunch of bullshit. And so many women that are more masculine energy than men that are just using these philosophies to go on a narcissistic heyday. Again, my encouragement is to help other people. Make sure you're not just taking advantage of the times in order to ride the gravy train into something that is like an eternal vacation for you personally. I don't think that the reviving, ascending feminine has anything to do with that whatsoever. And you know who I'm talking about, these people out there on their fucking crazy cruises and healing retreats and charging you $1,000 so they can dress up like a queen in front of you. Let's talk about the Jupiter-Chiron conjunction. Okay. Wherever Jupiter transits, it puts like a magnifying glass. It expands that energy. We're exploring it. We're understanding it. Really going to be able to gain the wisdom of wherever Jupiter's transiting. So Jupiter's in Aries right now. Again, it's an exploration of sex, willpower, energy, the desire to open new places, it's this returning of freshness. If I were to describe the energy of Jupiter, it's like that feeling when we were a child that when we grow up, we can be or do anything. We can travel the world. The world's a huge place. There's always something to discover on the other horizon. That's Jupiter. When we grow up, we'll be a spaceman. When we grow up, we'll be a chef. When we grow up, we'll be a scuba diver. Excitement, enlargement, expansiveness. So that's what Jupiter's bringing in Aries. It's like this, wow, new possibility, action, adventure. Now, Jupiter's going to inflate, magnify, and illuminate Chiron. So let's talk about Chiron first, because Chiron is one of the most profound celestial objects placements in the chart. I would never read a chart or do transits without including Chiron. Extremely important influence, especially if you're interested in healing, which I assume that you are. Chiron is so important in the healing journey. We could say that Chiron is the healing journey. For the process of Chiron begins with an experience of woundedness. brokenness, abandonment, betrayal, heartbreak. It shatters us. Chiron in any person's chart by house and sign will show where and how this original wounding takes place. And that initiates the journey of healing, which each and every one of us is on. And just like the mythos of Chiron himself, who's struck in the hoof with a poisoned dart, he spends his entire life searching for medicines to heal from his own incessant pain. In so doing, he becomes the master teacher. He becomes the first teacher of the first school in Athens. Chiron is the master teacher. And he sacrifices himself, replacing Prometheus on the rock. He liberates humanity's liberator and is immortalized as the constellation Sagittarius. So Chiron is profound. I spoke before of the Lord of the Heart, the cosmological being. If we could meet that being for a moment, it would shatter our hearts, the significance of that beauty, to behold it. This is true for Chiron as well. If we could perceive Chiron for a moment, it would be a heart-shattering experience. The love, the beauty, incomprehensible. Chiron is the cosmological Christ. And I am a believer of Christ, the sacrifice. Don't talk about these things much, but this is one of the most important magical, alchemical processes that there is. When we experience heartbreak, the essence that bleeds out from our heart, that's the sacrifice. That's unconditional love. That essence which is bled out from the heart is the most powerful, potent medicine in existence. The phrase wounded healer was coined by the psychotherapist Carl Jung to describe the phenomenon where some therapists were choicelessly driven to take care of their clients. Why is it that some people care so much more than others? Even amongst doctors, healers, therapists, have you noticed? Well, it's the wounded healers that are the healers. Those who have experienced enough brokenness and heartbreak themselves are the ones that actually care and take care of others. It's a proven statistic that those who are lower income and in poverty are more charitable and are more giving than, say, rich, stuck-up people in their super sheltered, naive playground rooms, because they don't know what pain and suffering is, at least not in the same way. There is an amazing study done by Martin Lass. I would recommend his Chiron book above any other, where when Chiron's closest to the earth, his influence is stronger and there's more collective crises taking place and simultaneously more charitable, compassionate activities all at once. That's Chiron. Okay. So what we have not been given, where we are wounded, that's what we can discover as our medicine and our path. I would say this is the truth for each and every one of us. It's like, if you really want to get the jackpot of what you're doing out there in the world, creating, we can't always maybe perfectly get it for our career. We do have different karmas and conflicts and, things going on. But our healing service, what we did not have provided, that we learn to provide to ourselves, is certainly what we become a master of. Interestingly, I was born under an exact Jupiter-Chiron conjunction 2 cycles ago. And I've studied this placement because it's interesting to me. And I've noticed that there's a significant number of teachers and shamans and healers that have this placement, as well as famous atheists. And I find that really fascinating, because what's the wound of a Jupiter-Chiron conjunction can be a wounded sense of truth, religious wounding, to do with belief systems, morality, what a good boy is supposed to do versus a bad boy is supposed to do. Boop, 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 boop. The moon's conjunct my Jupiter Chiron today, so I'm feeling it a little bit. I'm reflecting a little bit, and a little bit of my wounding. It was in the sign of Cancer, so it's a little different. As you feel too much, you complain too much, you should shut that down. When this is not what I'm basically doing in these videos in order to broadcast everything that I do. It comes from the exact same wound, is the point. I actually do my teaching and my healing through my wound. That's a Jupiter-Chiron conjunction. Similarly, where we feel this punch in the gut, where we feel this inability to be free or stand up and fight for what's important to stand up and fight for, because we need to stand up and fight for what is important to stand up and fight for. This is going to catalyze collective uprising. That's what this Jupiter Chiron is signaling for all of us. It's like little or not so little, subtle or not so subtle, crises or triggers that are igniting a fuse, a domino effect of increasing chemical reactions. Just wait till you see how exciting it's going to get in our world these coming weeks and months. There is no slowing down. The train is moving. The door is opening. We've got to jump at some point. It's going to be a very interesting dance. The full moon on the 7th conjoins asteroid Lilith, quincunx Chiron, Jupiter, Venus. Squares Mars. It's a bit of a cringy Virgo full moon. I mean, this is trial and error, redo, don't take it personally, stay flexible. It's not failure, it's feedback, because this is like an X-ray machine where everything passing through it is going to know every single little hair of what's off. And we can use that too. This is an excellent full moon for operations table style healing. The following new moon, 0 degrees Aries, significant new beginning. That cycle begins and then completes in a total solar eclipse at the last degree of Aries. Wow. So get ready, folks, because we're talking about March through April. Bam, there is brand new directions, brand new winds, things we've never seen or experienced coming in. And it might be a little bit of head spinning, to be totally honest. But yeah, we've got the next 2 new moons in Aries. So if you've been feeling a little sleepy or a little dead or a little crusty, well, get your gladiator back into business. We're going to be moving swiftly and quickly, and there's going to be a lot of activity going on out there in the world. One more bit before we wrap up, and this is going to be a major piece I come back to in forthcoming videos as well. And this is the completing transit of the moon's nodes through the Taurus-Scorpio polarity as they simultaneously square Pluto, completing Capricorn into Aquarius. Pluto completing Capricorn through this year, because he's going to go back and forth. He's going to go he's going to go into Aquarius end of this month, retrograde back into Capricorn in June, and then go back into Aquarius at the start of 2024. So this year, we're in between Pluto, Capricorn, and Aquarius. And, this is going to be intense. And this is also showing us how hard of lines a cusp is and how significant it is when a planet goes over that exact line of a cusp, especially the most outer planet, Pluto. When I first went into astrology, it's like, those cusps can't be that exact. There's got to be some blurry lines. Nope. Just watch it, study it, see it. So Pluto first went into Capricorn in 2008. For those who are sensitive, attuned, this is a culmination. It's a wrapping up of the last over decade of what can have as a theme collective oppression, bureaucracies, forces greater than ourselves ruling over us, our own ancestral demons, where we've been conditioned to suppress our nature, our inner child, our soul, out of conforming to a prison society that we're born into. That's what we're talking about here. This is big deal stuff. This is like uprooting some of the deepest roots going straight down into hell. And that's going to take place again, individual level, but collectively, this is a revolutionary period we're about to enter, and it's not going to slow down. It's only going to spin until we are flying off into something new and different. Now, to describe this tightening square between the nodes and Pluto, it honestly makes me emotional when I am thinking or contemplating on it, how it's going to affect so many of us, how it's going to play out in the collective. It's really profound. These times are profound. I mean, the best of what we're talking about here is an integration of soul into body. And just so we're on the same page, Jupiter Chiron stuff, it's good to know the perspective of the astrologer you're listening to. I teach my astro school at the link below, so you can get the same objective information without having to receive it from another astrologer. You can go straight to the source. So it always matters the perspective, the vantage point that you're listening from. I'm not about ascension. I'm about descension. We're coming into the body. I'm not about beating or transcending the planets. We're getting into the dance of the planets. That means we're going to be feeling more, sensing more, becoming more sensitive, and we're going to be kind of more crazily shifting with the seasons and the cycles. That at least is my personal goal. That's where I'm going. Y'all just watch me get crazier and crazier. You think I'm crazy now? Oh my God. Don't get me started. So this is going to catalyze an increasing reverberation between the nodes and Pluto. That increasing tightness and reverberation is going to increase through July, and then it's going to slow down. So we've got this and it is a reverberation between Scorpio and overwhelming intensity. So much fast-paced transformation, getting pushed over our limits, wriggling through uncomfortable, tight spaces. Facing shadows, facing fears, facing things that we were hoping were in the past, and now there's traces of it repeating, and it brings up a lot. So we're wriggling through these tight spaces, close proximity, intimacy, claustrophobia, and then when we least expect it, open space. Unexpected blessing, unexpected grace, a new opportunity, generosity, mercy, pleasure, treasure troves, gardens, paradises we never even knew or believed was possible. Being anchored in ourselves, being anchored in our bodies, being anchored in our world. Weaving in with and through the muck, back and forth and back and forth. And I mean, again, I get emotional because it's profound. The teaching that we're going to learn through this, the wisdom, the beings that we're connected to, that are guiding us through this, the spiritual lessons, the fast-paced evolution. Very, very profound. Cannot wait to talk more about it. Folks, welcome to March. Glad I redid this video. Much better the second time. Again, Virgo. Last year on the full moon in Virgo, I was camping with some friends in Florida, and we set up our whole camp out perfectly before realizing that we read the campsite number wrong. So we had to pack everything up, move it all swiftly at night into a much dinkier, smaller camp out. And those poor fellas had to listen to Timothy rant about the full moon in Virgo a little bit too much. So anyways, there can be some of this. It's not failure, it's feedback, it's adjustment. We're testing things out. We're getting things on track. Nobody's perfect. Don't feel bad about being a human being. And if you want to continue to share, explore this, what's going on in the heavens, how it's affecting you, check out my community this next month of March. Every month we host a free meeting to introduce yourself, say hi, share your skills, put out the requests for needs or support, emotional practicing of listening and showing and telling. I also do a Q&A every single month. You can bring your birth chart in with a specific question. I provide a mini 5 to 10 minute reading per each and every attendee, and we go through the charts as a group. It is one of the best ways to learn evolutionary astrology, by seeing it proven and test-driven in real time. But also, this is an opportunity to get in touch with me for a reading in this next month, because I have a lot of requests for readings. I am unable to keep up with the demand, and this is, again, why I have the Astro School. I am hoping that it's not going to be just me and a few other people that are really, really deeply submerged and understand how to use evolutionary astrology to effectively read the soul. So you know where to find me. I'm also on Instagram. There I'm posting more art, music, and creative type of stuff as well. So I encourage you to check that out. You can also support me, of course, by sharing this video or any of my material if you find it useful. Otherwise, don't worry about it. Looking forward. I'll talk to you next time. As always, take care.